Nsem-Pii TV nie.
Mamemu akwa abasoronko na memfa womra Nsem-Pii TV ene anopai na abusua mesel se obeka me ho na mede wabohwi na ya hakopiem ewo Madam Sophia Akuffo former Chief Justice of the Republic of Ghana na bino kasai waka wona wotu President John Dramani Mahama for no ho na efrida President John Dramani Mahama power no say womeka members of the Council of State no no ade bia President Mahama be bia emfa kwa mu bia no maami etimbo na adwenche na enya asem ketwa na sentem and the beto was say the removal of a Chief Justice Gertrude Araba Sechi Sabato Konono na said dinaswa John Dramani Mahama dinaswa di maami no na enye strong na abusia eneso so wasan ababiem na nsem na waka no beka sem echechi mu akere wa wanhwe ya na mahu ka ti mesrew se obeka me ho na ensem a Madam Sophia Akuffo watimu ato na wodi amamane John Dramani Mahama ene anopai no wososo watimu akwakonyo echefa enti yanko na wankasa kokotie kwanya wo fa so na woyi nsem no gu ho na wo che John Dramani Mahama say we a woye wo mai konkro Ghana no wo gu the judicial system no yanko na kokotie bibra ne ba Nsem-Pii TV yene na tifo ebeto aso.
And therefore there are many parts, having lived under the Constitution for this long by the grace of God, there are still improvements to be made.
So you will agree with a process to, is it review or rewrite?
Oh, review. Not
review.
Complete rewriting. Review. There are parts that have served us well. There are parts that have served reasonably well but could do better after we have practiced it for a while, could do with some tweaking here and there. Yes. And there are some parts that should be revised. And maybe there could be some other things that could be added.
So there's a general view by a lot of those who feel the Constitution needs to be reviewed that it gives too much power to the executive. As a general, they say that's the texture they get in whether the manner he appoints people in the police or the army heads, or even the relationship between the executive and the other arms of state. They feel like at the time maybe that worked, but having done this for 33 years, the Constitution needs to be re-looked at in rebalancing the power. Is that a view you?
Oh yes,
you agree with?
I endorse that. I endorse that view. There are a number of constitutional bodies, for example, that are set up. How appointments are made to those constitutional bodies could do with a revision, so as to enhance the independence. It shouldn't be apparent independence, it should be real independence. Independence in outlook, independence in the distance between the operations of that institution and the executive, or even and the legislature for that matter. When it's supposed to be an independent body, independence must be seen to be done. And there are too many, practically all the constitutional bodies, there's too much involvement of the executive. And things have evolved. Even in practice, we have seen the shortcomings. And if we take a world view and we are looking at international best practices, international best practices have also changed. Some of these methods of appointment, maybe we borrowed from somewhere else or the other, and some of these have also changed even in the places where we were borrowing them from. And we need to. That is one of the reasons why there have to be these changes.
Must the review also take into cognizance the recent, I know you don't want to go specific into details of the former CJ, but at least the idea of securing the judiciary, because of course you've served your whole life almost in the judiciary, from executive dominance. For example, some people feel the way 146 is written and the way it manifested in the previous case is not a good example. So if there's going to be a review, 146 must be looked at again. Is that something you believe?
Not only 146, it's important to reconceive the judiciary and how appointments are made, judicial discipline, a removal from the bench. All these need a second look. I have a very passionate view, and I have had it for quite a long time, long before recent events, about how the judiciary is appointed, because the manner in which that the appointment is made leaves a lot to be desired. There is not much transparency in the process, and it's important for that to happen, because otherwise then it leads to all kinds of speculation. Oh, this one got appointed because of this and that, and so on and so forth, because they may not know the reality of the qualifications and the merits of the appointment, because somebody was picked and some name was dropped and so on and so forth. So there's even the appointment. So the methodology of the appointment leaves a lot to be desired, and the trend these days is to have an independent an independent body made up of people or persons who are representing certain social bodies. Mm-hmm. So you're there not because some political person liked you. You're on that body because you're a member of a certain
So it's like the National Media Commission. It's representatives of various bodies, and then they choose their head.
Exactly. And then, has there ever been any horrible controversy about the appointments in the Media Commission?
No. Because sometimes even the person who leads it may not be the president's nominee.
No.
They are free to choose who they want to.
Exactly.
Even though the president has some nominees on the commission.
Yeah, and even then, the number of such nominees should be kept at the barest minimum, because you ask yourself, why this number, and why should there be such nominees? Tell us. And the justification, no one has ever been able to tell me why.
Do you believe there should be a limit to the number of justices on the Supreme Court, for example?
I always make a long argument when I'm asked that question, because before you put a limit on, you can begin to talk about a limit on the number of Supreme Court justices, you need to also then look at the scope and magnitude of the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. To the extent, and for so long as you have a Supreme Court, to which everybody has a right of access if they keep appealing along the hierarchy. How can you limit the number of the judges? They are overworked.
The workload is too much.
Yes, they are overworked, because there is no limit to even in terms of value of the case. There's no limit as to subject matter. There's no limit, and you will notice, if you were to do some quick research, that in every jurisdiction where there is a certain limit to the number of justices, it's because the sort of cases that can come to the Supreme Court is also limited. And then, for example, in the U.S. Supreme Court, which has a different thing, it's up to the court, outside the court, to decide what case. So pre-court, they decide what cases they're doing. And they will decide, this year, we're doing X number of appeals. And that's it. So, but ours is come one, come all. And I can give you some of the most ridiculous situations whereby maybe somebody applied for stay of proceedings in the circuit court.
As low as the circuit court?
Yeah, in the circuit court. And the court refused it. So they appealed to the Court of Appeal on the refusal to stay proceedings. And the Court of Appeals says, yeah, we uphold the decision of the circuit court.
Yeah.
And then the person wants
appeal to Caesar.
Yes. And then they will want a stay, they want a stay of the decision of the Court of Appeal, which upheld
it's like the class prefect bringing every dispute to the headmaster straight.
That's what
without going through the class teacher.
No, even if you go, there should be a limit to
the cases that get to the headmaster.
Yes.
So there's a frivolity there. So we can't discuss the number if we don't look at the way, what type of case can even get there. So they must be discussed in tandem.
That must be discussed.
Okay.
And that must be, there should be a cut-off point. In some jurisdictions, they'll decide that it is only matters which raise issues of law, not issues of fact. Issues of fact after the Court of Appeals is enough. But you must be raising only issues of law. And even the issues of law must be novel. Shouldn't be something which has been rehashed over and over and over again. There have been so many decisions. So whatever decisions were made along the way were based on existing precedents. And so unless there's some fundamental change in circumstances that will justify asking the Supreme Court to change its stance on a particular matter, you should not be coming to rehash.
Finally, I know yourself and Prof. Michael Quay, under the aegis of the IEA, have already done some work on constitutional review. Is that part of what is going on? Because the concern is that every government comes with a flavor. President Mills set up a committee, Fiajo chaired it, a 1,000-page report. President Akuffo came, Osechi Mensah and Co. did some work, I think, and that work was presented to President Mahama. Now President Mahama has appointed 8 Kwesi Prempeh to do another job. Of course, he tells us all the previous jobs are but it seems it's almost like every regime has their own flavor of how do we end this? How do we get to a point where we all agree that this job is for all of us and it's once and for all?
Well, we just have to agree as a nation, or the decision makers have to simply agree that once the Prempeh committee comes up with its recommendations, and it goes through the necessary processes, and we vote on it. Let's live with it and work with it and see what happens. You see, because we must never proceed on the concept that the Constitution is cast in stone. It is not. It is not cast in stone. It must not be seen as cast in stone. Otherwise, you strangle yourself as a nation, because a Constitution must be responsive to the people, as the years go on. And that is what Justice Sowa called a living constitution. It is responsive, and it must have meaning from generation to generation. And the only way it can have that, partly through judicial interpretation and construction and things like that, that's a judicial evolution, but also through periodic revisions that will catch up with the times. It's very disheartening that it's like there's a certain adage: the more things change, the more they remain the same, because it's almost as though we never moved. And it seems to me it comes from a certain conception that, I will use the word conception rather than perception, that when you're a female, you're fair game, and indeed, when we were young, you were brought up to believe that every male, other than those at home with you, not even including the houseboy or the employees, are all predators, and therefore watch out. For my mother, that was her rule: stranger danger, watch out. And it's a shame that matters have not improved, even though we've got all sorts of laws now which have been well publicized. We've got special courts that deal with gender-based violence and so on and so forth, but it worries me. In fact, I realize from these statistics that even this stranger danger is even misleading, and therefore we need to revise.
So it's not even strangers.
The advice we give to I give to my granddaughter. It's not stranger danger, male danger. Maybe that's what it should be. We should go back to my mother's concept, male danger.
Is it a question of law or values? I'll give an example. Last month, a video emerged of a teacher in a school called KNUST SHS who was seen behaving inappropriately with a student. Now, the discussion on social media seems to suggest that if the student is 17 and is of age, it's not such a big issue. Of course, a lot of people condemned it, but there was a bit of tolerance, and in fact, if you listen to some of the media discussions around this, they were trying to say, well, the girl knows what she was doing, why are you blaming only the teacher? And there's a lot of that. So are we fighting a losing battle if all we focus on is the law? Because it seems to me that you may change the law, but if a person's thinking around appropriate behavior is wrong-headed, I'm not sure you will succeed in changing anything.
But you see, the law is only part of the toolkit. Whether it's even, you take any crime, or for that matter, any civil offense, the law functions as part of the toolkit, where when all else fails, that should not fail.
Okay.
But other than the law, there's also upbringing, there's also socialization, there's also morality, there's also common sense and decency, and a whole load of other forces that should work together. And so for when you in a society where somebody who is in law we will say in loco parentis, somebody who is in the shoes
of a parent,
that's a teacher, that's That's a boss. That's anybody in a position superior to that of the survivor. I don't like the word victim. Yes. And so, somebody who's abusing, a boss who's abusing his or her position, for that matter. Any person in a position of power who is abusing it, it is wrong. And the fact that you're 17 years old, and I have to tell you, I was never molested, but I think there will be very few females of any generation who do not remember some dirty old man somewhere along the line who, it could be, Osofuba Jekoto Tofik Bremi. And then when you come, he's trying to entice you into his room to bring you the sweets. And if your mom has not warned you, then you follow him into the room. There's always, the predators are always there. And unfortunately, we still have in our society a vestige of, oh, don't talk about it, oh, it's embarrassing, oh, it's shameful, oh, and what did you do? What did you do? Yes, look at the dress you're wearing. And that's sort of thing where there are all kinds of justifications that in some total amount to enablement. And we need, as a society, so basically, in answer to to your question, it's a whole social matter.
But let's come to the schools. We've had programs where people have called in to say a lot of our girls in secondary schools are being preyed upon by their duty bearers, whether it's a teacher or, and they feel like the way the educational service punishes errant teachers is more with transfers, and that there needs to be a stronger view of punishing offending teachers or duty bearers in a way that is more exemplary. I don't know what your reflections are on that. Some people also think we should even take it away from the GES and let it be dealt with as a criminal matter, because there are lots of times where the big punishment for a teacher found misbehaving is a suspension or a transfer. That's typically what tends to happen.
That should be beside. That should, because after all, okay, maybe it depends on whether
no, there was harassment. I'm not even talking about not necessarily
a crime.
Yes, so maybe you have a 15-year-old student in SHS2 in an inappropriate relationship with a teacher, where they are texting and talking to each other in a way that is clearly unethical.
Okay.
Do you then? I'm not sure it's a crime, so I'm not sure how you're going to deal with that.
It will not. That's the thing. It's sort of borderline, because
ethical,
you see, it raises ethical issues,
yes.
professional ethics, and